Welcome to the Postgraduate Certificate in Dental Education information session. Before we start, I do need to inform you that this session is being recorded and will be shared on the ICE YouTube channel, and the recording will be sent to all who registered for the event after the session. My name is Laura Aston. I'm the Head of Academic Centre Administration at the Institute of Continuing Education at the University of Cambridge, also known as ICE. Today on the panel, joining me, we have Stuart Ellis, Co-Course Director of the Postgraduate Certificate, Thomas O'Connor, Co-Course Director for the Postgraduate Certificate. We also have Kate Linton, Enrolment Coordinator, who's monitoring the live Q&A function, and Matt Thomas, who's marketing support today. Next slide, please. This week, we're running a variety of online sessions to give you the opportunity to find out more about our medical and health science programmes at the Institute of Continuing Education. Course information sessions like this one, covering each course in our portfolio, will be taking place at 6:30 every evening. In addition to our live sessions, we also have additional video resources on our website giving you further information on funding options, the application process, college matriculation, student support, and interview preparation. If you missed any of our sessions or are unavailable to attend, then you can watch the recordings, which will be available on our website 24 hours after each event. Links to events and resources will be shared in the chat and will also be sent via email after this session. Next slide, please. First of all, I'd like to tell you a bit about the Institute of Continuing Education. We're a long-established part of the University of Cambridge. ICE was established over 150 years ago in 1873. In fact, we're the oldest university-led provider of continuing education in the world. Today, we offer a wide range of courses to adult learners, including short online and residential weekend courses, international summer programmes, and award-bearing part-time undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications, covering a number of subject areas from archaeology to genomic medicine. We also act as the admitting body for all MST courses within the University of Cambridge, with our MST students becoming members of a Cambridge college upon commencement of their course. We work very hard to ensure that ICE is a place where professional networks are formed, friendships are made, and the transformative power of learning is recognised. Next slide, please. Upon acceptance of an offer, all postgraduate certificate dental education students become members of the University of Cambridge. Welfare and support services are provided by ICE and the university. You will also become an alumni of the university after completing your course. Next slide, please. In today's session, we will take you through what you can expect from the Postgraduate Certificate in Dental Education, including entry requirements, teaching style, module content, and assessment. At the end of the presentation, we'll take you through what kind of support we can provide during your application. We also have time reserved at the end of the session to answer your questions, so please send us your questions for any members of the team via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen during the presentation. I'll now hand you over to Dr. Stuart Ellis and Dr. Thomas O'Connor, Course Directors of the Postgraduate Certificate in Dental Education.
Lovely. Thank you, Laura, and a very warm welcome to everybody. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. I'll just start off by briefly introducing myself. I'm Stuart, and I'm still a wet-fingered dentist practicing at Cavendish House in Cambridge. And as well as being one of the course directors along with Thomas at the PG Cert in Dental Education here at Cambridge, I'm also Chief Examiner of a PG Cert, a PG Dip in Implant Dentistry, which is my main field of interest in dentistry, for the Cambridge Academy of Dental Implantology. And I'm a course lead of both the MSc in Advanced Dental Implantology and the MSc in General Dental Practice at Aston University. I'm involved in CG Dent, or with CG Dent rather, being the council member for the Trent and East of England region, and I sit on the accreditations working group. Also act as an expert witness and clinical advisor for the courts, and quite a lot more recently for the General Dental Council. I completed, along with Thomas, the MST, which is the Master of Studies. In Cambridge, it's called Master of Studies rather than Master of Science in Medical Education. And actually, I only completed mine just last summer, so a fairly new graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, and hello, my name is Thomas. I think some of you on the call this evening already will know me. And again, like Stuart, I am a working dentist. I work in the specialty care dental service here in Cambridge. Been involved with the Institute of Continuing Education for several years now. I'm course director on the MSc in clinical medicine at ICE, and heavily involved in education in the region as well. I'm an accredited procedural sedation mentor, so for conscious sedation in dentistry. I've been a quality improvement fellow with Health Education East of England and Clark Research Fellow as well. And as Stuart was saying, the Masters in Medical Education, I've completed at Cambridge as well. And that's very much a parallel course. And actually today, found out that my own Master's in Medical Education project has made it into the Getting It Right First Time report for hospital dentistry. So, you know, there is a real world impact on anything that we do within these courses and anything that we follow on from. And we'll hand back to Stuart to talk a bit more about the course.
Thanks, Thomas. So we'll give a brief overview of the course, and we'll start by explaining who the course is aimed at. The Postgraduate Certificate in Dental Education is not just aimed at dentists, although it may well be the majority of applicants. The programme is also aimed at educators in allied fields of dentistry, so dental hygiene educators, dental nursing, dental technicians, and so forth. The course is considering that when you enter into it, who are already or have at least recently being an educator in the dental sciences with preferably at least 1 year of teaching experience. And one of the reasons for that is the course's philosophy is very much loaded onto reflection of how we work as educators now, and following what we learn from the course, how we can adapt our current methods rather than completely learn new things from the scratch, but adapt our current methods through a process of reflection. So we do need to be actively acting as educators. Now, that's a broad church, really. That would include educators who are involved in undergraduate teaching or postgraduate teaching at dental schools, dental foundation trainers, trainers for the GDC specialities, also those involved in CPD programs, which is a huge field in dentistry, as well as clinical supervisors, clinical mentors, educational supervisors, and more experienced educators as well. So educators who are program directors or program developers. Next slide, please. So the PG Cert is, like most postgraduate certificates, made up of 60 credits, and it's split into 2 modules. The first module introduces the core skills in dental education. And what we're trying to do, what our overarching aim is to develop you as an educator and as a learner, because we need to be learners to be good educators. Firstly, by introducing educational models, which we use as tools for our development and to encourage reflective practice. So what we mean by reflective practice is requesting and responding to feedback from our learners, from our colleagues, and from ourselves through a process of self-appraisal, which means we do have to open ourselves up to vulnerability. We also try to encourage a mindset of reflexivity. And what we mean by reflexive in this context is, after going through the reflective process, thinking about how we should respond to this and how we can further improve our own learning, therefore becoming better practitioners. And It's a bit of a process of going backwards. An analogy would be a golfer who returns to the basics of the grip of holding the stick. I'm a terrible golfer, holding a club, it's called, obviously. After receiving feedback from a coach, from a mentor, or even from a pundit. So it's that process of continually going backwards. So in the first module, we nurture that by focusing on reflection and looking at theoretical models, which help us to actually do not so much a formalized process, but more of a structured process of reflection. And reflection is a word that many of us find quite scary. It does mean we open ourselves to vulnerability, and we're not really too sure what we do to reflect. And we'll start introducing models in outline that can help us with aspects of medical education, which is what this course has really been born from, the medical education faculty. But things which are more profession specific to dentistry, such as mentoring and coaching colleagues and teaching at the chair side. We'll also look at teaching individuals and groups, and finish towards the end of the module on how we can assess our learners, whether that is chair side teaching, whether it's teaching a group, individuals, or supervising, how we can assess in the workplace, work-based assessment, which is predominantly, initially was introduced as a formative assessment process. And after that, how we can give good structured feedback to our learners, which will improve their educational journey. Feedback is something that learners value very, very highly. We will be delivering module 1 via 4 contact days, as well as online background, online stuff with the early and so forth. There will be 2 live online sessions using the Zoom platform, much as we are today, and 2 face-to-face sessions. Now, we do the face-to-face sessions in a 2-day block, which we find is more helpful for people who have to travel to Cambridge from some distance, especially from overseas. Module 2 starts to build on what we've done in the core skills module, the preceding core skills module. So again, this is for 30 credits, and it delves more deeply into these theoretical educational models that we have. But we encourage you to actually challenge these models, to critically appraise them, and from that to integrate those that are specifically relevant to your educational practice to help you along the journey of improving as an educator. We also look at the psychology of learning and teaching, and we discuss the best ways of aligning the assessments within an educational programme to our intended learning objectives and the teaching that we have been provided. In other words, what are we assessing? Are we assessing it in a correct way? And why are we assessing what we are assessing? In other words, are our assessments telling us what we want to know about the learner? And module 2 is delivered through 3 contact days, 1 being a single day of online Zoom meeting. As before, they are 2 separate days that are spread over. And again, a 2-day face-to-face block, which we deliver here at Cambridge. The programmes have both formative and summative assessments, the assessments being along the lines of up to 5,000 word, I don't like to use the word essay, but 5,000 words piece of writing, which is delivered in the reflective genre, where you're showing what you've learned from both the teaching and very, very importantly from your peers on the course. We do a lot of peer assessments to improve yourself as an educator along the journey. In other words, the development of your practice as an educator. Can I have the next slide, please? So just to recap, the programme is a mixture of live, online, one-day sessions on Zoom and in-person teaching. The in-person teaching being delivered as two-day blocks to make it easier for people to travel to Cambridge for those of you who don't live close. But the focus in the delivery of the teaching at the University of Cambridge, as it has been for centuries, has centered around a small group discussion-based method. So rather than being larger lecture theatres of didactic teaching, we do get ourselves into small groups, small tutorials and seminars. And we have an emphasis on peer learning. So it's not just about learning from Thomas and myself and from the literature that we give you to read. It's also learning from each other. So we'll form triads of learning amongst the group. We do try to make sure that the activities we do are contextualized not just to education, but specifically to education in dentistry. And of course, there is also the VLE, the virtual learning environments, which all learners will have, where we'll have ongoing discussions, background activities, recommended reading lists, and asynchronous online presentations that you do in between the meetings. So there's certain didactic things that we need to get across, information transfer, if you like. And we're very much of the overarching philosophy that when we meet, it should be to try to develop our understanding in what you're learning, rather than just to transfer the knowledge. Transferring the knowledge can be done much more successfully in a didactic form if it's done in your own time. Can I have the next slide, please? And these are our dates, which will be going on the website fairly soon. The opening day of the course will be Thursday, the 2nd of October, and that will be a live full-day online Zoom meeting. We have our first face-to-face session in early December, the 3rd and the 4th of December, where we'll be meeting here in Madingley Hall at Cambridge. After the new year, we're back to a one-day online meeting in the middle of January. That is predominantly because the middle of January can sometimes be quite a tricky time to travel if you do have to travel because of adverse weather conditions, which tend to crop up at that time of year more than they do in early December. Then springtime, we'll meet again after a fairly lengthy period of a couple of months where we'll have background asynchronous online activities and other activities which you would undertake as part of self-directed learning. So back in for a two-day block just after the middle of March, finally finishing with a online live session in early May. And Thomas will now explain the rest of the programme, or not the rest of the programme, sorry, an alternative pathway to the first half of the programme, the MicroMasters. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you all for joining us here this evening. And I suppose before we even talk about MicroMasters, one of the things really as well, why do any form of qualification in dental education? And if you're involved anyway in dental education, you'll know that not alone is the East of England a bit of a desert for provision of dentistry in many respects. That dental desert term is used quite a lot to describe the East of England. The only NHS region of England that doesn't have a dental school or a dental hospital. And I guess this course being put in place is one of the steps to be able to start addressing that. So if you are interested in addressing the idea that there is no dental school or dental hospital in the Eastern region, this is a good starting point. If you are involved in education of foundation dentists, of the foundation dental therapists, hygienists, if you're involved in any way in training and education of dental nurses, any aspect of this or sedation or providing CPD, then having the ability and having the facility to have a local and regional course that will meet your needs is very much why this was set up. And again, in terms of meeting your needs, we know that we're all busy clinical people. And one of the one of the aspects of this course will be to have what edX, and edX are one of the big online medical and clinical and scientific education platforms in the world, linking with Harvard University, linking with University of Cambridge here. And the idea is that there is the ability to do part of the course online through a MicroMasters pathway at edX. And with that, it is sort of a dip in, dip out idea that you don't have to commit to doing the whole course. You can do the introductory parts of the course on edX as MicroMasters. And then if you think, actually, yes, this course is for me, then you can step up to doing the essentially the qualification bit of that and having your first module that's delivered at your pace, at your own convenience. And if we have the next slide, please. So the pathway of that is what's called really a capstone course. So you have the MicroMasters, which is that open access, essentially free to view, free to engage with teaching. So you get the expertise of Stuart, to get the expertise from myself and the team at your own pace. And then if you want to go ahead and do the capstone part, then you can take a bit like when you're doing CPD online, the verifiable CPD will have some questions, will have some resources for you to engage with. Engaging with those is that capstone bit is the add-on paid bit that you would have. And then that would be the equivalent of the first module. So again, it's very much designed to meet the needs of the people in the region who are involved in dental education, and to be able to step in and to sample part of the course as well. And then you would join us for the module 2 in person, as described by Stuart. So flexibility within this is important. I know there are some of you who are based locally and regionally and who will really enjoy that engagement of coming together on the contact days. The MicroMasters online, that would all be all these terms that have come in, I guess, since COVID, that would be asynchronous. So you'd be really doing that on your own rather than engaging with the rest of the group. And next slide, please. So in the edX model, that you have your content in there, which will be delivered by Stuart and myself, and also by some of the other educators on the roll. And we're all hands-on dentists. We're all people who are involved in education at whatever level, whether it be at postgraduate level, undergrad level, or with the foundation dentists and dental therapists within the region, or those CPD courses within the region. And in the edX, very much the same content as Stuart was describing in module 1, work-based assessment, chair-side teaching, working with groups, supervision essentials. And then the capstone is where you become what's called a verified learner, where you have that assessment parallel with the assessment that you would have if you were attending in person for the module 1. And if we have the next slide, please. And the progression pathway of this, that if you're anyway involved in dental education, particularly as an educational supervisor with the foundation dentist, increasingly the recommendation is that you have a PG cert, so a postgraduate certificate in dental education. Then for those of you who are perhaps a bit more geeky about things, and I say that in a good way because I include myself in this, then there is year 2, which is the diploma in dental education. And that will be looking at more practical aspects. We'll have practical chairside teaching in that as well. And then the 3rd year is progressing to a Master of Studies, so a master's in dental education. And depending on your own particular needs, you can do the cert and then progress to the dip. You can do the cert and then leave it at that, or you can do cert dip and then go on to masters. There is a 5-year rule within this. So if you do the cert coming up in this year, you don't have to immediately progress to the diploma or the masters. You can take some time out and then come back to your studies. And next slide, please. And then with the requirements, really with this, we want to be as open and as encouraging as possible. We don't want to put barriers in the way for anybody for applying. The university has a certain standards that we'll expect from everybody. But with all this, I would say, don't be put off by any of the the requirements in this. If you were interested in applying, then certainly get in touch with us, have a chat about this and how you would phrase this on your application. So dentists who are in primary, secondary or tertiary care, dental therapists and hygienists, and orthodontic therapists, dental nurses, dental technicians, at whatever level you're involved in education, and also from overseas. Anybody who is overseas or is qualified overseas, as long as you can get to Cambridge for the contact days, then you are very welcome on the course. And indeed, we say it's a local and regional course. Anybody from any part of the UK and from Europe, obviously welcome to join us. We say that you should have at least 1 year of experience in teaching, and that can be various degrees of level of experience. It doesn't mean that you have to have a formal 1 year of being an educational supervisor. Very much we're here to help encourage you along that pathway and help you develop. And next slide, please. Then the application portal is on the website there. Those of you who use QR codes, you can scan that, or you can go to the link, which should be clickable on there, or you can just Google PG Search Dental Education Cambridge, and that will come up. The application process is designed to be very supportive. It's designed to give you the ability to apply for the course. Then the deadline for applications is the 30th of April. And following on from that, then there will be interviews, which are fairly standard and fairly informal. It's really just a chat with the course directors to see, does the course meet your needs and is it the right time for you to be doing that course? And then the course itself, as Stuart says, starts in October of 2025. And next slide, please.
Great. Thanks ever so much, Thomas. So in terms of the support we can offer you during the application process, the enrolments team at ICE is available to help you with any inquiries about the course or the application process. We have Kate from enrolments here today answering questions in the Q&A for you. So thank you very much, Kate. They can help you select the right course, provide advice on eligibility requirements, any help you need with the application process. If you haven't got round to putting your question in the live Q&A this evening, please do so as soon as possible. You can also scan the QR code that's on the presentation now, and that will take you to our inquiry form. You can also email questions directly to the enrolments team using questions@ice.cam.ac.uk. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the Q&A now. So we'll go through any questions that have come in. So let's have a look. Please do put any questions that you would like to raise in the Q&A function. Okay, let's have a look at the first one then. Okay, so we've just previously touched on this. Is the course open to international students? So yes, very much so. We welcome applications from all over. Just one point to note is that the university can't issue visa sponsorship at postgraduate certificate level. So you would have to have your own right to be in the UK to study. But we do have an international student office within the university who can give you guidance on that. Next question. Thomas or Stuart, I don't know if you want to cover this next one. How much interaction will I get with other students on the course outside of the face-to-face teaching days? I don't know if you want to cover activities on the VLE, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can jump in, and then Stuart, you can follow on. On the course in clinical medicine, which I'm also course director on, we find that there is a very strong element of interaction between the students, both officially and unofficially, outside of the contact days. The VLE, the virtual learning environment, the Moodle environment is open to you there. We tend to set I won't say tasks because that makes it sound a bit onerous. We tend to, to set ideas on there for students to engage with. You talk with each other on the discussion forum there. Particularly, the idea will be when you come across something that works well, when you come across something that you've put into practice from what you've learned on the course, you share it on there with everybody else, and you'll find that people will chip in and go, well, me too, or actually, can you explain this a bit more because I didn't quite, this didn't quite work for me in this way. So there's a lot of interaction on there. We also find that our students tend to have a lot of interaction on WhatsApp groups, and that can be talking about dental education, medical education, but it can also be that slightly more social as well. So there definitely is a very strong community feel. I am one of the core team on the communities of practice learning and teaching here in Cambridge, which is a new role. And we want you to be involved. We want you to have that student experience. We want you to have that student feel. Stuart.
I think there's another one coming, isn't there? Asking us about the VLE and the estimated amount of work on a weekly basis. It's not so much one of the programs that's structured with weekly tasks. The tasks are between sessions, so there's these 7 sessions, and the tasks are directed directly at those sessions. Sorry, it's just gone to another screen now. How much work? It is a 60 credits PG cert, so it is credited as 600 notional hours, which means you need to be prepared in that year to put in a total of 600 hours, and that'll be time you spend on study days, and time you spend reading, time you just spend planning or thinking about things, and so on and so forth. It's certainly not something to do if you haven't got sufficient time to do it, and that's something to be very well aware of. So you've got to make sure, if you are doing any program like this, that it is a good fit at this stage in your professional and personal life. I think the other standard question: are there group online discussions? Yes, there are, but they are not marked, if you like. They're not enforced with a summative assessment. And that is something that's encouraged as part of a community of practice.
And then talking about sorry, Laura, talking about the online commitment with the VLE, just reflecting on my own experience with the Masters in Medical Education, which again was certificate, diploma, and then Masters. I undertook that alongside my own clinical work, alongside everything else that I do in life. And what I really liked about that, which is similar model to what we'll have in dental education, is that there are the specific deadlines for the 2 main assignments, but you can chop in and out of the VLE and what you're doing at the pace that suits you. It's not that you must complete this by this week, this by next week, because we all have busy clinical days, and whatever we plan to have done that evening or that weekend, looking at the VLE and engaging with education, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So very deliberately it's designed to be able to be flexible with that and to meet your needs. Additionally, if anybody is having any any difficulties or any questions about engagement, then we're here to be very, very supportive. It's not designed to be a course where that very old-fashioned method, which some of you may have encountered in your undergraduate teaching, of you come in, we teach you stuff, and you say it back to us or you don't pass. It's absolutely the opposite. We are here to facilitate your learning and to help you bit by bit, because we all learn in different ways. And you'll find with the people you're engaging with, the students on the course, the person who's beside you will have a very different learning style to you, and we're here to accommodate all of those for you.
And I think that's a really helpful point to make about that juggle with part-time study and having a very busy work life, family commitments. At ICE, we are very used to that, and we're very used to supporting that. And we have a great student support team. There's obviously opportunities should you need to discuss deadlines and things like that. So we try and be flexible and supportive where we can. A couple more questions in the chat. What do you need to do for the master's? So I'm assuming that relates to what you have to do in order to get the full MST. So I don't know if we just want to recover the progression route and each stage of it, how long it takes, that sort of thing.
Okay, so with the certificate is a 1-year course, and that is 60 credits. The diploma, again, is a 1-year course, the same amount of input required, 60 credits. And the master's, again, is 1 year, same amount of input required, 60 credits. So people sometimes think, oh, that the level of input and work increases and increases as you hit the master's. No, the level for the master's year is about the same level of work as the PGC year, but you're building on what you've done. For the diploma year, the second year, then again, you will be working on written projects, written assignments in there and reflection, and you'll all be doing the same assignments. For the actual master's, what you'll be doing is a master's dissertation. So you'll be working on an individual project that is of interest to you. I mean, that's really the main thing. It's got to be something that you will be interested in and will get joy and value out of. So it's specific to you. And there are various ways of doing this. You can do it as an educational development project, or you can do it as a secondary research and a review of something within education that is important within the dental setting. To give you an example, my own master's in medical education was focused on entrustable professional activities and competencies for non-specialist dentists working under general anesthetic. So it was putting something together to say, well, what should the non-specialist dentists working under GA be able to have as competencies? And that's had a real world impact and is being implemented. So for your master's project, it's really something that you think you would like to have in place in the world of dental education. And then you have a supervisor who works with you on that, and the supervisor will have master's level experience and postgraduate supervisor experience and take you through step by step to the point where you have a project that you can present. I hope that answers the question. Stuart, you had some comments.
Yeah, and one thing to be aware of is that when you go into the second, if you go on to the diploma, which will be the year next year, if you like, that is done in conjunction with the medics. So medical education and dental education merge at that point, although there are divergences with tutorials, so that there are dental specific aspects of that. But when you're getting into the certificate is really about developing you as an individual educator. The diploma is more about developing you as a educational leader. So more about curriculum development, curriculum design, faculty development, and so forth, which tends to be more not generic, but more universal between medical and dental education. And it also gives you the opportunity to cross-learn with people in other fields, which is extremely helpful. But there are, of course, when it comes to curriculum design, aspects which are specific to dentistry, and that is covered in tutorials which then branch off. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, Stuart. Another question, just about eligibility criteria. So just to confirm, you do need to have some experience as an educator in order to qualify for entry onto the course. That is one of the entry requirements.
And if you are totally brand new in dental education, for example, if you are thinking that you are going to become an educational supervisor or a clinical supervisor, and this is going to be helpful for your career pathway, then I would say then the level of experience that you need in dental education, on your application, you can think, well, was I involved in anything at undergraduate level? Was I involved in peer reviewing of other people's teaching? So, if you're currently don't have a formal role in dental education, don't think, oh, now I've got to wait a year or two to actually do this. So certainly get in touch with us about your application and how you can phrase that in certain, in a particular way to be able to demonstrate that. I mean, we all have, even, if you're working in a single-handed practice with a dental nurse, you will be in some way involved with education and knowledge sharing and developing, your dental nurse through. So they're the kind of things that, can actually help you with your application as well. Again, the application isn't meant to be a barrier, to you.
Yeah, so as Thomas says, it doesn't have to be a formal post. You don't have to have a formal position. You could have spent time with delivering CPD programs or acting as a mentor to colleagues. It doesn't have to be a mentor to learners. You could be a mentor to a colleague. It's just having experience of that process of being somebody who helped somebody else to develop, essentially.
Okay, thank you very much. Question here, if I'm unable to attend any of the in-person teaching, am I allowed to catch up at a later date? I think it's fair to say that while we try and be as flexible as possible, the expectation is that it is a full attendance course, and you must make plans where practical to be there at the face-to-face sessions. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And that would be the same with all of the Cambridge University courses. The contact days are published prior to applications. So when you're applying, you are committing to being there on those days. Obviously, if there are medical reasons, then student support is there to be able to have reasonable adjustments for that. But it's not that the contact days are recorded and then you can catch up online, because there's that interaction, that a group dynamic that you will be missing out on completely, which is very much part of the Cambridge experience. And another question people often ask or have been asking is, well, how is the dental education course at Cambridge different to other places? Well, first of all, there is a very strong in-person and group activity in this. We will get to know you personally. We'll get to know what your own personal circumstances are, what your learning style is, what your needs are. So it's not an online course that is one size fits all, and then you get a very basic level of, that idea that it hasn't been tailored to you. As we go through, we see what's going to tailor towards you and work that towards you, but a huge amount of involvement in the group, and you're learning from each other. You're not simply coming to listen to Stuart and I, because you have a huge amount of practical experience in your own job roles that you're bringing to something that will be different to what Stuart and I have experienced.
Yeah, but so yeah, as Thomas says, the expectations is 10 for all of them, but there are support frameworks in place for extenuating circumstances. Such things happen to us all, so it's not something to be frightened of. If there is a genuine extenuating circumstance, I'm not overly sure, Laura, would that cause a delay in graduation? Because assumedly the learner would have to take that day separately next year.
I think that those are the technical bits that we get into on a case-by-case basis on there. Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I'm conscious that we've only got 2 more minutes. So let's just pull out one more question. So can we have some clarification on where in Cambridge the teaching will take place for the face-to-face sessions? I don't know if you want to, we're planning next year to use Madingley Hall, which is the home of ICE. I don't know if you want to talk about the benefits of being in that sort of environment.
Well, yes, indeed. The clinical medicine course that I'm also involved in is broadly based at Madingley as well. Madingley is great because if any of you know about traffic in Cambridge and getting in, it can be a nightmare. This is why I don't have a car, I've got a bike. But Madingley, it is just off the A14, very easy to get to, free parking, wonderful food and catering there as well. And there is accommodation available on site if you book in advance as well. There are then, as we progress through for the diploma and the masters, there may be some contact days which will be in one of the Cambridge colleges. That could well be at Homerton College in Cambridge. And we will also plan to have some element of chairside teaching as well as we progress through diploma and into masters. But to probably answer what you really need to know is that Madingley Hall in Madingley, just outside Cambridge, very easy to get to. If you're not driving, also easy to get to from the train station and that as well. It's not far out of the city. Oh, it's off the M11 as well, off the M11 and off the A14. So very convenient for both.
Great, thank you, Thomas. So with 1 minute to go, I think we'll end the Q&A there. If we could just go on to the final slide, please. So we're coming to the end of the session today. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope you found the session informative. We'd love to hear your thoughts via our satisfaction survey, which will be emailed to you shortly. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you.